Heyo, Angry Spork here with Young Justice Outsiders, episode 25, Overwhelmed, which is precisely what the Taos facility is now, what with the Justice League bringing them all those previously captured metateens. This is all reported by an actual news anchor, not G. Gordon Godfrey. It's important to note that it's taking place on February 14th, Valentine's Day, but several hours ahead in a different time zone, Western Mongolia. It's February 15th, and Vandal Savage is in a secret lair with the monitors of the other members of the Light, and Luthor says, "It's time!" or something. Back at the Hollywood base, Leanne is being babysat by Halo while the news footage plays, and she's got a Wonder Woman doll, she's got a Kid Flash doll, and she's playing out this little scenario where they found, Wally West Kid Flash, that's who the doll's of, and now they're going to go find Cheshire for her daddy. It's kind of sweet but sad at the same time. The news mentions that Cyborg is a new member of the Outsiders, and he's already got people talking about him, what with releasing footage that he recorded of Granny Goodness being evil and an alien, and Good World Studios is saying, "Oh no, that's all special effects, baby. We do that all the time. Cyborgs is lying." But of course, Gretchen Good can't be reached for comment. Will Harper and Artemis's place. Will's watching the same news footage, but on his laptop, but he shuts it down as Artemis walks in, and he explains that he has Violet babysitting Leanne, while he and Artemis have a nice quiet dinner. He's got the candles lit, he's got those tin covers for the food, like all nice and romantic. He starts stammering like, "Oh, I know we didn't talk about it, like if you feel the same way I've been feeling," and so she stops him talking and they start making out. Dang it! Of course, it's not long before Artemis breaks it off and she apologizes to Will, runs into her room, and clutches and apologizes to a picture of her and Wally and makes a call to someone she needs to see. Meanwhile, Connor has taken the bioship in RV mode and Fred, Bug, and Wolf to Geranium City. Fred is kind of conflicted. He can go back to his original home where he can be himself. He doesn't need the glamour charm, but he's made friends in Happy Harbor at the high school. I was going to say we've only seen him make one friend at high school because it's Harper Row, so that should be a reason for him to leave Earth forever, but he has made friends with a team, so there's that. And they stop at a gas station in Geranium City, so Superboy introduces Fred to the mayor of Geranium City, Dabney Donovan. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I did a little reading years ago when I was working on a speculative script. I was researching like old and obscure DC villains, and Dabney Donovan is like this weird, crazy, mad scientist dude. Strangers passing through the town, actually, and they leave. So Donovan is okay with dropping the psychic cloak. And all the other people, the natives of Geranium City, they're all revealed to be xenomorphs. Dabney Donovan himself is actually Double X, who we saw in previous seasons as being friends with Superboy and having basically a chair at Cadmus when everything was revealed and so forth. Actually, it dawned on me a while ago why they couldn't, Dr. Double X from earlier in the season, the guy who could duplicate himself. Now, it would be they just call him Dr. X, so it kind of makes more sense because Dr. Double X, then you have Double X. It's going to get confusing. Superboy starts introducing Fred to other citizens. Almost all of them are these xenomorphs, but there are two other humans there. One is Jim Harper, Guardian, and the other is Dr. Spence, whom I don't know if we really got much on in previous seasons. She completely slipped my mind, so when he started just saying hey to everyone, just listing off their names, I wasn't sure if Dr. Spence was the woman sitting at the table or if he was supposed to be one of the xenomorphs. Todd Donner, the anchor we saw before, is having a chat with Geo-Force while Beast Boy's in the base texting Blue Beetle, and Blue Beetle's like, "Hey, His Royal Highness is stealing your thunder," and Beast Boy texts back, "I don't care as long as the message gets out." And that's basically what goes on in the interview. The anchor tells Geo-Force, well, some people think that Infinity Inc. is trying to steal the Outsiders' thunder. And Brionne's like, all we care about is that the message gets out and, as long as people are being helped and all that. So, of course, after the interview's done, Brionne and Tara are meeting with King Gregor, their brother, who's, happy they're together again, happy that Tara's alive, but, he had to meet them in secret. He's still trying to get metahumans allowed back in Markovia, so things have to be played on the down low, and they have to be patient. But fortunately, Brionne's been working on his patience, so miracles! And Tara excuses herself and sends a message to Slade saying her brother's meeting with them, so he's out of Markovia. Yeah, I'm sure she sent that for totally non-evil reasons. Artemis has met with Zatanna under that big tree where Zatara had that day off from being Dr. Fate. Of course, Rocket and Miss Martian are there, for what comes after. Basically, Artemis wants closure. She never got to say goodbye to Wally, so she wants to, meet with Wally's soul, which they know exists because, we saw Secret's ghost back in season 1. Rocket's apprehensive, and Zatanna saying there are limits to what, she can do. But, Artemis is really committed to this. So she'll go to, Wotan or some other villainous magician if necessary. Zatanna's like, okay, just try not to hate me afterwards when this is all said and done. She'll try and have their souls meet halfway, but Artemis has to get back before sunrise, despite all the temptation that she'll be met with in this limbo state, or she'll be stuck there forever. But it's a risk she's willing to take. Zatanna casts a magic spell, and poof, Artemis is in this, basically a lot of puffy white clouds. She's in a white outfit, and then there's Wally, white clothes himself, and she runs up. They make out until we go back to the Hollywood base, where Beast Boy is amusing Leanne by changing into various animals. She's going, again! Then a boom tube opens, and Metron flies in, and Halo instinctively grabs Leanne to protect her and tells him to stay back. She's got the rainbow aura going. He just moves the boom tube portal through the room until they're all encompassed, and it disappears, and Beast Boy's left alone in monkey form, all confused, like, what just happened? The power of monkey was useless. So they transport to unknown with the time and date blanked out at the bottom. Leanne is just having the time of her life. She's floating around. She's not in any danger, so says Metron. And she's just giggling her way, and Cyborg and Halo can only communicate in the pings of, the father boxes, mother boxes, etc. And Metron says that, he considers them his grandchildren because of their fusion of his technology. He says that he's impressed with what they've accomplished and that they will be crucial to the upcoming galactic conflict, provided that Darkseid doesn't kill them, what with them, and probably going to be a big hindrance to his plans. So good luck, kids. Sends them back. And, of course, when they're back in the Hollywood base, Beast Boy's all relieved. Leanne's like, again! Just something weird is it looked like her hands were abnormally small. I thought maybe it was her head that was abnormally big, but I think it's her hands. I know she's a child, but proportional to the rest of her, it just seems like her hands are extra, extra tiny. I don't know, maybe it's just me. With the power of her mind, Artemis makes a home for her and Wally. It's basically the home she lives in now, but, more decorated with them in mind, and Bruce Lee is there, and things really accelerate even for a speedster's ghost, because, first Artemis has a wedding ring, and then she's preggers. We go to Xenomorph City. Craig, the little Xenomorph buddy that's closest to Connor amongst them all, I guess, telepathically informs Fred of their history, how they were beneath the Cadmus labs for so long until Superboy, Superman, Guardian, etc., liberated them from under Luthor's thumb, and they found them a plot of land to build their own city, and they were brought there by Jon Stewart creating an ark with his ring, like Noah's Ark. So nice touch. So they built their own city, and they live peaceful lives, and they cast their illusions to keep them hidden from outsiders, not Garfield's outsiders, but the general run of humanity. Superboy saying Xenomorphs live here peacefully, coexisting with mankind, but Double X says yes and no. So go back to Artemis's fantasy, or heavenly fantasy, I'm not sure how to characterize it, but she's already given birth, baby's in her arms, and she and Wally have jobs at the university, they're teachers, and Artemis doesn't feel like she wants to return to costumed life. And she has the TV on, and Zatanna is on screen saying she's going to make the sun rise. A little hint that she's running out of time. She changes the channel. It's a wacky episode of Hello, Megan. She just turns the TV off completely. And Wally says, the sun's coming up soon. Artemis doesn't care. She'll be happy right where she is forever. Back to Double X's office, he's saying that, yes, Duranium City's citizens are safe, but they're segregated, and they're technically still hiding because they don't think humanity is really going to think very highly of them. They're out in the open, but they're kind of not, and Fred can identify with this. He could go back home and just blend in with the rest of the drones, or he could stay on Earth and, keep hiding as Fred Bug. So what Forager decides is he's going to join the Outsiders. Before he's just been a part of the team, now he's going to show himself and show the Earth who he really is. And Double X says, well, Superboy, what about you? You've always been good at collecting strays. And when he says that line, Wolf kind of perks up, and there's this look in his eye like, you got something against strays. But of course he doesn't maul anyone. Just a funny juxtaposition. Superboy is technically a xenomorph, and he's helped humans and metateens, but he hasn't really helped more of his people. What Double X asks him is what Superman would do. And Fred Bug, previously handed over his glamour charm when he decided to fight with the Outsiders, but then he decides to take it back because he's got one more task for Fred Bug to do. So back in Artemis's fantasy, there's a knock at the door, and there's Rocket, there's Megan, there's Zatanna, and they're trying to get Artemis to exit the house, but Artemis is like, oh yeah, you want to see the baby? Well, the baby's sleeping, bye! So Artemis is convinced she's got everything she will ever need in the here and now, in this heaven fantasy she's created for herself. But Wally asks her what their kid's name is. That starts shaking things up some before the child is just freaking gone, and then Bruce Lee starts disappearing, the house is gone. Wally's like, look, this has been great, but you've got a life to return to. Stop mourning for me. You can find love again. I trust your judgment because, hey, you chose me. And this is a really powerful moment. It's got excellent music. It's appropriately swelling as, they give one final kiss goodbye. Artemis walks through that doorway. The singing increase is just phenomenal music choice right there. And she returns to that spot in the park underneath that giant tree. I think she said spirits did it all in one night. So I'm guessing that's a reference to A Christmas Carol. She hugs Megan and Zatanna. She thanks Zatanna for what she did. She's got their closures. Everything's good. Artemis and McGann are walking next to each other, and several yards behind, Rocket and Zatanna are walking, and Rocket's like, man, I can't believe you got Wally's ghost and all that. And she said, no, I said I couldn't do that, and I meant it. So really it was just a little bit of Zatanna's magic with a lot of McGann using her telepathy to help Artemis create this fantasy for herself to help work things through. It's very much a deception, but it's one they might tell her about, or maybe not later on. I'm thinking maybe that could be something that is revealed in between seasons. Like sometime in season 4, we get Artemis, maybe a little upset with Zatanna because she found out the truth, or maybe she finds out sometime in season 4 and the rift happened. I don't know. Back at the Croc Harper house, Will is doing the dishes while Violet walks in with Leanne sleeping in her arms, and she just says, "Oh, it was an average night." Maybe want to at least tell the daddy later that there was a bit of a wacky space adventure. Maybe. I know she's fine, but, I think he should know. He's her dad. A moment later, when Violet puts Leanne to bed, Artemis comes back, and Will's, trying to apologize and everything, and Artemis is saying, "Hey, look, you helped me. You've been helping me as part of how I can move on, but you and I are not going to be a thing. We're just not right for each other." And I'm like, yes! Because I just find it very contrived that the only reason these two should be together is because they're, pretty people in the same living space. It's like, no. It's one of those, cliches that people just kind of allow for whatever reason I could get into, but for the sake of brevity, moving on. And Will actually feels the same way. When they kiss, it's like, no, this doesn't feel right. You're my sister-in-law. We shouldn't do this. And so they decide that they're friends, they're family. She kisses him on the cheek, goes to bed. The candles that were burning on the dinner table, one had already blown out, which I think is representative of Artemis, and Will snuffs out the other one, probably representative of him and his feelings in this whole matter. Just a guess. There's a news flash about Baron Bedlam returning to Markovia with, military loyalists and some metahumans backing him up, and he basically takes over because, they got boom tubed out of the prison earlier in the episode. I did kind of forget to mention that. Apologies. He's taking over because he doesn't have any faith in his nephew, and then they cut to Luthor, General Secretary Luthor, who says that no, they're not going to lift restrictions against the Justice League from entering Markovia, because there are good people on both sides. Both sides, dear Lord. It's not clever, guys, okay? I mean, you're excelling in so many other ways in this series, but the whole Luthor as Trump thing is just painful at this point. I don't like the Mango Antichrist. But that doesn't mean that just because you make fun of him, it's golden, okay? Even if the target is easy, you can still suck when trying to hit it. Anyway, Gregor's like, how did they figure it out that I wasn't in Markovia? And Tara's like, does that matter? She said, totally not the person that let that get out. Gregor, he can't just sit around in a Beverly Hills hotel room and do nothing. And Geo-Force is like, hey, I'm on the Outsiders. We're all about going where we're not supposed to go, where the Justice League can't go. They're going to go to Markovia. And then we get the end credits of Wolf sleeping with Craig, just kind of snuggled up next to him. Cute little scene of a mutated wolf and a genetic mutate. Aww. We're building up to the final episode of the season. It was nice to see Artemis get some closure, because that's something that is technically still hanging around. I can understand why she would still kind of harbor these feelings. She never got to say goodbye. He's still around in some form, so it's entirely possible to get that closure. They didn't really cover why Zatanna could, if it's a limitation of her power, fine, but they did encounter Secret in season 1, who was a spirit that shows there is an afterlife, that, souls exist, and what is it that prevents her from making some kind of contact with said soul. Not a lot of action, really. It's setting up the final episode and the final confrontations. Definitely a more character-centric installment right before the big finale, which I will get into next time. See ya.